more feasible here for us. So, but yeah, it's good to have everybody here. I'll turn it over to Mark. What I'm going to ask Mark to do here is, we talked a little bit about this one here as well, but what I'm going to ask Mark to do is just share like what 3 things he wanted everybody to take away from yesterday. And then kind of just open it up for everyone else to ask any follow-up questions and things like that. His topic was on game management. And it was very interesting to see some of the slides and notes that were brought about to me to get to see what exactly Mark talked about. But Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you here now and let you go and just kind of talk about, the 3 major concepts or the 3 major things you wanted people to take away from your presentation last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Stu, thank you so much for the invitation. And it's great to be able to talk with everybody. This is a groundbreaking half hour. And I wish Little League senior leadership was on the Zoom call as well, so they could see that we truly can cross regions and work together as opposed to stay within our lines of demarcation. And a lot of what we do is fluid and we do it together, and to not have that opportunity or that ability to work together just makes no sense. And I know, Stu, I'm preaching to the choir when I have those conversations with you. As far as yesterday's presentation, first of all, we had 440 people on the call, which was pretty impressive. And 3 takeaways. Takeaway number 1 is pretty simple. We have a role as volunteer Little League umpires, and that is to be role models, positive role models, and to do everything that we can to make sure that at every opportunity we are doing everything we can to teach positive life skills to children. We need strong leaders, and I think that is an important role that we take on, whether we're on the field, whether before the games or whether after the games. I think because we have a different mindset, which is probably point number 2, because we have a different mindset, that mindset being that we're the only ones in the entire park, in the entire location, who doesn't care who wins. That's our role as umpires. Our role is to be balanced. Our role is to find equity. Our role is to make sure that both teams have a level playing field to win, lose, make their own determinations during the game. And as a group as that third team out there who comes with a different mindset of not.
What happened?
Oh, I'm not sure. We kind of lost Mark's. Mark, we've lost your audio. Uh-oh. Let's see here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear.
Yeah, we just
having that training.
Okay.
I think having that training is incredibly important, and you just don't walk out on a field and become a good game manager as an umpire. And it is what sets umpires apart. Most, if not all of us, can become good ball strike umpires, good safe out umpires. We can learn those mechanics. But to be a good game manager, to be able to know how to speak to managers and coaches, how to diffuse situations, when to use body language, when to use voice inflection, is something that is learned over time and through experience.
Yeah, it's all great stuff. Mark, I think we lost you in your audio between your different mindset talk about like the third team, and then we picked back up on you on when you started talking about us and our role as game managers. So I don't know if you remember what you talked about in between those 2 comments, but we just lost your audio in that one and couldn't hear what you.
No problem. No problem at all. No problem at all. I think what I was getting to in point number 2 is we have a unique role in the fact that we are the only ones out there who don't care who wins. And because of that, we come with a different perspective as far as being able to find that equity and to find that balance. And while all around us is going crazy, be that calming influence out there. And in that role, be a positive influence on the youth that are watching us, our every move and how we handle things and how we deal with certain situations. So that was the point number 2. So essentially, it's we don't care who wins, and we have a different perspective there. We have to make sure that we are projecting those positive life lessons to children that hopefully will make them better adults. And the third part of it being that game management skills just doesn't happen. It has to come with training. It comes with mentoring. It comes with watching others fail and succeed in different aspects of the game.
Cool. And I think a lot of that stuff that Mark just shared in those three major takeaways really, really important because a lot of us, although, what Mark shared is definitely stuff that we've reflected upon and thought about and probably explains why exactly we do what we do. Oftentimes we can lose sight of that in the middle of competing with ourselves and becoming better umpires, in the middle of a lot of frustrations between our various roles in Little League and things like that too. So I think everyone there should kind of go back to that grounding place to find some youth and at least some refresh, especially here in 2020, and reminders of what we do. I'm going to lead things off with a question. I know Rich just dropped some, and a couple other different people dropped one off too in that chat. So as more come up, I'm going to give you a question here, Mark, to talk about. You mentioned in that last point about game management skills, and if you can identify just a couple of what you have seen as like the most, especially in evaluating umpires at your regional, who you pass on to either that regional or World Series umpires, what have kind of been the major game management skills that basically prove to you that somebody is ready to jump from, whether it's state to regional or regional to World Series?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think humility is probably the one I look for most. That umpire who walks out there, who wants to be in charge, as opposed, and we talked about this last night, that umpire who walks out there who wants to be in charge as opposed to being in control is an umpire who still needs work. I don't want an umpire who goes out there who wants to be in charge. I want an umpire who goes out there and is going to be in control of situations and also realize that none of us are perfect. We fail. How do you deal with that failure? How do you project it onto somebody else? Do you accept it and work through it with your personality traits and with your skills? Those are the things I'm looking for in an umpire. And I'm also looking for an umpire who understands that they truly are role models, whether they want to be or not. They've taken on a leadership position that puts them in the eye of the storm, so to speak, to be that role model. And I want to see an umpire that's working. I want to see an umpire that works from the minute they walk on the field to the minute they walk off the field. Too many umpires believe that when that third out is made in a half inning, that it's time to relax for 1 minute. Unfortunately, they're usually relaxing for 5 minutes, which is an issue all to itself. But I want to see an umpire who takes that job seriously, but seriously to the point where they're also approachable. They're human beings. They understand and grasp what we're trying to accomplish. This is not a baseball or softball program that we're involved in. It's a leadership program that we're involved in. We use baseball and softball as the vehicle to teach those life lessons to children that we hope will make them better adults. That's the individual I'm looking for.
Great answer there. And I think we share a lot of that in the Central region, especially those of you guys who have come through the Little League Regional. I've been able to hear that too. So it's great to hear that we're all on the same page. I'm going to get to a couple questions here because there's some really good ones in the chat. First comes to us from Rich Condry, who is in just outside the Indianapolis area. Says he works with a few umpires that seem to relish the ejection of managers. What is the best way as a leader to diffuse a partner or work with someone like that who seems to be walking on the field looking for an ejection?
Yeah, great question. And I will tell you that we can't express how important that parking lot meeting is before the ball game, to establish a mindset, to work with that partner and have those, sometimes because you've worked with them very often, a difficult conversation about reminding what's the objective, why are we here, what are we looking to accomplish. To the question and to the point, it's a lot easier to eject than it is to keep in. And to be honest with you, I've had situations where I've almost turned it into a little internal game between the umpires. In other words, hey guys, if we are dealing with a situation today where you're ready to eject, why don't you, let's see how easy it is or what we can do to turn that around and keep that manager in the game. Let's use our skills and what we can do to keep, almost make it a little competition about, hey, you ejected, that's almost like a point against you. What did you do to try and diffuse the situation? hey, let's be honest. There are situations and that come up in the game where a participant has crossed the line and they need to go. Mm-hmm. And what I've always said is I've never ejected. This is my 45th year of umpiring in Little League. I've never had an ejection. They've ejected themselves and I facilitated their ability to leave the field. And I'm sure that you probably preach that same thing. But I pride myself in trying to use all of my skills to figure out how best I can keep somebody in a ball game within the confines of where my line is as far as reaching it and overstepping it.
Rich, I think that's a great question. And I think Mark's answer is head on, like, that pregame conference to really, as a leader, if you kind of think about it, the same as a coach would give a pregame speech to his players to set in a mindset the right way of focus, energy, and attacking things. We're essentially doing the same thing. And, just as you as a coach would not want a player to have an attitude of like sabotaging your opportunity to try and win a game, same would be true there. I think Mark's question, what can we do to keep this guy in the game, is a pretty good question of flipping it back on there. So just that, taking advantage of that leadership opportunity in the pregame conference, and then sometimes working during the game when when tensions get high and things like that is really important too as well. So good question there. I think really good answer.
And I'll tell you, Stu, we hear it in the parking lot. We mm-hmm. hear our partners look at us and say, I'll tell you, that Cubs manager looks at me wrong. He is gone today. I'm not dealing with any of his crap. And it's like, okay, timeout. Let's have a discussion. Let's work together. Let's figure it out. And that's where you can use your skills in that parking lot meeting to have those conversations.
Yeah, I've got the good fortune of working with the same partner. He's actually a sophomore in college. His name's Noah Williams here in Columbus. He goes to the Ohio State University. But, we always joke, we're usually there about an hour and a half before a game, before a regular rec game. And it's always, and I know a lot of you guys feel the same way, it's always the best part of my day. And the time that it's not the best part of my day is the day that I don't need to be there at that particular time. So whatever you've got to do to get yourself in that mindset, I think is real important. But at the same time, that energy and that mindset itself, to Mark's point, it's also infectious. And as leaders, it's our job to make sure that our crew and our team is on that same path. So I think that's a really, really good point. I'm going to pass it down to Adam's next question. Adam is a preacher in Kentucky. He asked this when he said, what would be an expected response from Little League and also from umpires if we encountered a situation such as what happened in the Texas high school football game recently? Adam, if you could just real quick update us on what you saw, because I'm not aware of it, and then we'll go ahead and handle that question.
Yeah, so I think it happened within the last 2 or 3 days. There was a high football playoff game.
Thursday night,
okay, where a player from one of the teams was ejected for receiving 2 unsportsmanlike penalties. Right after his ejection was announced by the referee, he rushed back onto the field and just tackled the referee, for lack of better. He was escorted off the field by police officers, but my knowledge, no charges or anything like that have been done. But I guess what would we expect the response, Little League International, but also, from umpires that are part of the game when that happens? I mean, is that a point in the game where, it's a forfeit, we're done, we're leaving, everybody's going home and cool off the rest of the day, or finish the game? In this situation, they finished the game. In fact, the kid whose team was affected by this actually ended up winning the game, and so they'll be advancing further on in the playoffs.
Yeah, Mark, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm not going to suggest any response from Little League International. I'll let them answer that themselves. I would suggest to you that let's put that in the context of a Little League game. Should that unfortunate situation happen, if it's my game, if I'm on the field as an umpire, that game's over. I am not going to continue that game because nothing good can happen. It's a heightened stress situation. There's probably a lot of volatility that still is existing from one side or the other. Every call you make from that point forward, you can't win in that situation. I'm going to suspend the game. I don't forfeit games as a volunteer Little League umpire. I suspend games and they're referred to the board of directors. I will tell you from a personal standpoint, I am going to pursue that with every ounce in my body, legally and through the law enforcement. We unfortunately in our society have too many situations where it becomes an excusable conduct. Oh, he's a good kid. He just was out of control. And that may be the case, and that may be wonderful. I'm going to let the authorities make that decision. I cannot, I just, with every ounce in my body, I cannot stand by and just poo-poo a situation like that and just chalk it up to competition. I think societally, we are, that's a microcosm, unfortunately, of what's going on in our society. And again, as a leader, as somebody who wants to teach those positive aspects to the participants, part of that is making people and keeping people accountable.
You know, and to add on to that one, I think that's like the physical here and now. And to go back to one of Mark's major points, you know, he talked about us being role models, and you know, there's certain situations that happen in a game where you playing the game is no longer important for us to do, and that would be definitely one of them. But at the same time, I would just encourage us to be aware of, you know, because a lot of times we're working in the same league often, or at least in the same leagues often. And my guess is that coaches probably saw such behavior of that player, signifying that something like that, and maybe not to that magnitude, but you know, there would be something to be aware of. So I think, you know, as we continue to work, we don't want to, you know, be petty by any stretch of the imagination too, but we've also kind of got to have a barometer on us to make sure that the environment that we are structuring for these young people is pure, because essentially the product on the field, especially with 12-year-olds, and it's as pure as the game gets. And that's from somebody that coaches college athletics too. Like it is as pure as it can possibly get. And as long as we can do what we need to do without being petty and overly involved, but to make sure that environment is what it needs to be is something that we have the duty to do, just as coaches, league officials, and everyone else involved do as well.
Stu, I think that's a phenomenal point. That situation did not just happen. And what I mean by that is there had to have been, in my mind, and I don't know all the facts, but I have to believe that at some point throughout the game or at some point prior to that quote unquote attack, there was a buildup happening that hopefully officials become aware of as it's happening, and try, again, using great game management skills to use those skills to diffuse, to reduce, to decrease that potential volatility until unfortunately it came to a head and caused the physical assault that it did.
Yeah, man, that's a situation that hopefully none of us ever have to endure. But, you know, like you said, Mark, societally, like it's drifting that way. And we see more and more, especially with social media and things like that, it becomes more and more prevalent, unfortunately. I'll go to George's question, because his is a little bit more, even more so game management. He talks about between innings. And I think this is really important for a lot of people trying to advance up through Little League. And then even for people who are, you know, local league UICs, district UICs, or whatever the case may be. George asks, most wasted time occurs between innings. What are some good do's and don'ts to keep the game moving between innings?
Yeah, a great question. Do's and don'ts, and I agree. I mean, I have people calling me all the time, Mark. Our games are 3.5 hours long, and we're only getting 2 full innings in. And I go out and I watch, and I go, oh, I see why. Okay, first of all, start on time. Start on time. If the game starts at 5 o'clock, first pitch at 5 o'clock. Get all the admin stuff done before we're ready to throw pitch 1 and put that ball in play at 5 o'clock. Number 2, do not spend in between innings meeting with your partners. There's no reason for that to happen. As a base umpire, get to your rest position, stay in your rest position, and hustle to your position when it's time to send the ball down. As a plate umpire, get to your rest position. Make sure that you're getting substitutions as quickly as possible. Make sure that all that administrative work is done. Move with a purpose, clean off the plate, put your mask on, get in your position, and put the ball in play. There's too much banter that goes, unnecessary banter that goes on. And what I see, and the biggest culprits are base umpires who all of a sudden decide it's time to go hang out at the backstop with the plate umpire. And boy, 1 minute becomes 4 minutes very quickly. And if you take 4 minutes and you times it by each half inning, you've just killed yourself with a half hour or 45 minutes of dead time. So those are the quickest things to do. Keep your eyes and ears open. If a manager, you see him coming towards you, obviously he probably wants to make a change, and go get that change and work with that manager or coach to get those changes as quickly as possible. If they have a question in between innings, walk up, get that done, get all that preliminary stuff. That's why in between innings, you have to keep working. That is not a 1 minute rest period, and adhere to the 1 minute. Get those players moving. Hey, let's go. Here we go. Let's hustle. Let's go on the field. Let's go. Hey, that'll way number 7. That'll way to work hard for me. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that breeds itself. If you project it, they will follow it. If you're going to be lazy, if you're going to be non-caring, if you're not going to move with a purpose, what makes you think the participants are going to do that?
Yeah, a couple of great points there that I want to come back and circle back to. I think, in last night's presentation, you mentioned facilitating game flow. And I think this is absolutely the number one thing we can do to facilitate that game flow. And especially as many of us who are, trying to work our ways up or even trying to mentor younger umpires, the concept of rest position, I think, is really important to put. Like, there are times where, you need a drink and it's okay to get a drink. But I kind of use the rule of thumb that, once the inning's over, if I'm working the plate, I'm going to go to the backstop, get my water. And probably by the time that the offense comes off and the defense starts to come on, like that's probably about a 20-second interval. Like I don't need much more than 20 seconds to get a quick swig in and get back to where I need to be. And I'm almost always on the foul line. And the same is true with my base umpire. If he'll come start to talk to me and things like that, I'll start to count pitches like on my hands so that non-verbally he sees what I'm doing. Or I'll just straight ask him like, hey, how many pitches has he thrown? And that way he knows like, hey, I've got 5 pitches here or whatever it might be to help limit myself in that between innings times. And then even as a base umpire, DJ, I know I've worked a ton with you over your development. Phil, you're on the call. We work a ton together too. As a base umpire, if my plate umpire is taking a little while, you'll see me out there with like a thumbs up or like one of these numbers like, hey, we're good to go. To get things going. And generally that gets things going too. So I think our nonverbals in our resting positions are just as important as making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in between innings. And Stu, again, we're going to have that conversation in the parking lot. Yep. That's part of my discussion. Hey, let's make sure we stay away from each other in between innings. Let's keep the game moving. Yeah. 100%. Just a reminder for us. Yeah, 100%. I've got a question, Gerard. I'm going to put you on the spot here. So as I mentioned earlier on, Gerard leads the umpires at the Intermediate World Series out there in Livermore. And I started with one of the questions that, I gave to Mark about game management. And basically you've listened to 2 guys, myself and Mark, who do a lot of evaluating at the regional level, but Gerard manages umpires at the World Series level. And obviously he's got to make certain decisions as to who places where and things like that, just as we do, but a different context because it's a World Series. So Gerard, when umpires arrive to you at the World Series level, what are some things that you are looking or hoping for out of an umpire in terms of game management? Like what skills, what specific things are you looking for that says, all right, I know I got a good one here? I think you're muted, Gerard. See if I can unmute you.
Is that better?
Yep.
Can you hear me
now?
All right. Number one, I really appreciate being a part of this, and Stu for facilitating this, and Mark for what you did last night. Last night was really awesome. It's a great opportunity. Hopefully people in other parts of the world either got in or will have this as a resource. As the difference between a regional and a World Series, and within this group of 25 volunteer Little League dedicated umpires, there are 2 of you who have come to Livermore and been a part of what we do. I feel my job is to not, I mean, to make it as comfortable as I can, to be as objective and candid and upfront as I can, and obviously to put the person with the most skills on the field when it really counts, and that's what's really hard. I mean, it's hard for any assigner to do that part of the thing, and I don't dwell on it. I do it relatively objectively, and I'm open to discussion, but once it's done, I usually don't change. And the other thing about what I do in Livermore is everybody gets to work. We put 6 on the field for every game. So there's a maximum effort. When Stu came in 2013, being part of the inaugural crew, there were 12 umpires. So there were 6 and 6, and there wasn't a whole guy. A couple of years later, Williamsport added another one. So we had 13, which is an odd number, and it's a little bit harder, but it was doable. We did have a rotating whole guy. And 2 years ago, for me, it was the best. We had 14 umpires. So we had 7 and 7. And the whole guy, there were 7 umpires in that particular crew for each of the 14 games, so that everybody got a plate and everybody got the other assignments, and it just rotated from there. So hopefully that's a feel for particularly what I do in one of the Baseball World Series. I've been privy to 2 Softball World Series, and the things are done as that particular umpire assigner coordinator wants to do it. So that's kind of my take.
Yeah. I thought Gerard touched on a lot of things there. And I think being comfortable is a big part of it. And that comes from confidence, especially in your ability to manage a game and helping umpires be comfortable. I think it's a big thing we can do. And again, and as people who are oftentimes are not only working ourselves up and trying to experience some great things, but also lead people, I think that's a huge part of it is what can I do? And this goes back to Mark's point too, about trying to keep people in games is, as umpires, our job is also not only to umpire officially and things like that, but to make people feel comfortable. I think is a big part of it too, so that their skills can come out for us. And that goes a whole lot in our ability of game management. And as simple as the topic of game management can sound, it's without question, undoubtedly one of the most intangible skills we can have as umpires to work our ways up. Placing personnel is not always easy to do. That's true with us as we talk about the regional level and things like that. And then Gerard touched on another one, effort. And it's not necessarily wasted effort or fake effort, but, intentional, efficient means of what we're doing, I think is a big part of the types of skills that, generally get people to where they want to go. And I think that's important for not only us in our aspirations in this avocation, but also as we try to help train and develop other people as well to think about the same way. So,
yes, Stu, I would tell you, Stu, I really respect what Gerard does at the World Series level. And I'll tell you why. My involvement in the World Series is in the past, either assisting and evaluating or things of that nature at the regional level, especially. There's 2 differences that I think are paramount between the two. Number one, regionals are more community based. And what I mean by that is when the umpires show up for a regional, they usually at least have identified or know one another to some extent. They've been to clinics together. They've maybe, the Northern California guys and the Southern California guys may have had an opportunity to work games together. Maybe they went out to Arizona, maybe they went out to Nevada and they worked together. So there is at least an understanding of who everybody is. At the World Series level, man, you're bringing together 14 individuals who have no idea who each other are, except for maybe if you have 2 from the same region or something like that. And the second part of that is, and one of the things that Stu knows about me is I'm frank, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes that's a bad thing. But there's a lot, from my experience, there's a lot more ego involved at the World Series level from umpires who show up. It's all that looking up and down each other and going, at the barbecue, hey, I'm better than that guy. It's like, how do you possibly know that? But there is that ego that you have to get past. I made the World Series. I'm at the World Series. You can't critique me. You can't evaluate me. You can't tell me anymore because I've already reached the pinnacle. So I have a lot of respect for what Gerard does. I have a lot of respect for what they do at the Little League World Series in Williamsport. It's a completely different mindset when you bring that group of umpires together, as opposed to what, Stu, you and I do at the regional level on a year-to-year basis.
Yeah, great point. And I think that's some interesting stuff. You gave me an idea for, future conversations, and that is ego and not only the difference between a regional and World Series umpire, but just the experiences in general, I think are pretty interesting. So I'm glad we've kind of gone down that path in the conversation of game management, because ultimately game management is what's going to make you either stay at a regional level or go to a World Series level too. But I think that whole concept of ego and understanding what it takes to succeed at the regional versus the World Series, to not necessarily different playing fields, but definitely something to address here for many people as well. So. Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. We're starting to get into it. I appreciate Mark and Gerard for being on, and all of you guys for being on. And hopefully you got something here from today. And as I mentioned, I think game management, and Mark did a fantastic job last night, and then even today picking apart some of your guys' questions, which were great, at just how important game management is, because it's a little thing that basically amounts to our identity and our reputation as umpires. And not only is the mentality important for us to make sure we keep in mind to stay grounded in what we're doing and stay humble in what we're doing, but it's also to make sure that we understand the importance of what we're doing, not only for ourselves in this avocation, but more importantly then for the people that we go ahead and serve. Next week, I've got I'm on for the wedge presentation at home plate on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. That's a Little League presentation. So register through the umpire registry for that. And then I'll circle back on Friday again next week at 12:30 Eastern time and have some stuff, just as Mark did, kind of open it up for the field of questions. So if you're watching when we go through stuff on Tuesday of next week about the wedge at home plate, which many of you guys have learned from us anyway, but feel free to ask that stuff. And that's what these sessions are designed to do, is to be kind of open-ended follow-ups to those to those clinics that we're having. So again, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be on with Little League to talk about wedge at the plate. We'll be back on Friday here on the Zoom call at 12:30 to recap that one. And then the following week, I've got one on wedge on the bases, and we'll do the same to wrap things up before heading into the week before Christmas. So appreciate you guys being here. I've got about less than a minute here left. It's great to see everybody. Happy holidays to everyone. And I look forward to seeing everybody then hopefully next week. Take care, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stu.
Thanks, Stu.
Yep. See you guys.